top 20 in the country. McCord, time, taking a chance, end zone open, that is caught, touchdown. Marvin Harrison Jr. for the second time today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Carmen Buckeye, where we sing Carmen, Ohio every Saturday, regardless of winning or losing. So far, the Buckeyes are 2-0, and Youngstown State we beat 35-7. A lot of people expected to score in the 50s in that game. However, I would argue that Ohio State wasn't really trying that hard. They did take 2 touchdowns off the board. That happens sometimes. But anyways, we're 2-0, and we're gearing up for Western Kentucky. So the big question is, what is Ohio State looking like for the remainder of the season? Many people are arguing about that. Many people have a lot of concerns. Naturally, we should have concerns. We haven't played a big team yet, and we got to get through this game first before our first big test of the season. Ohio State beat Youngstown State. We had a total of 482 yards against them. We gave up 234 yards. Ohio State did test out some of the young stars. On the very first drive that Youngstown State scored on, we actually had a true freshman at corner who gave up a huge chunk play. That freshman will get plenty more playing opportunities. However, was pulled from that game after that big play. But that's part of how you learn. You make mistakes, and our defense is going through some growing pains. However, we have given up a total of 387 yards through 2 games, which is 5th in the nation. Regardless of what you say about the teams that we've played, that's a tough thing to do. So it is still something to celebrate. Another thing to celebrate is Youngstown State only got 135 yards passing on us, while we scored 359 yards passing. Their completion percentage was 17 for 26 on our defense. We only gave up 5.2 yards per pass, and we did get 1 interception on defense, which is the first interception by a cornerback for the last 2 years. So that's quite an accomplishment, and I think nobody was more deserving of it than Burke. Burke received a ton, and I repeat, a ton of criticism last year, somewhat deservingly so. However, I would argue that under Jim Knowles' new system, he wasn't quite as confident last year as he was under Kerry Coombs' quote-unquote system. I don't know what Kerry Coombs was trying to accomplish, but that's neither here nor there. 21 of 33 passing was our stat, and that does include both quarterbacks, Devin Brown and Kyle McCord. We did average 10.9 yards per pass, and while that is not quite up to par, it is an okay stat. We do need to work on that a little bit, but hey, I'll take it. Our rushing is interesting. Okay, we had 123 rushing yards. That does include some loss of yards. Now, one bright spot among that was that our Henderson, our main running back Henderson, averaged about 11 yards per carry. I'm not being exact, so forgive me if that's not exact. But he averaged about 11 yards per carry on 5 carries. But we didn't use him a lot. And, of course, we did still run by committee, so that's something to bear in mind here. Just looking at this game, the things that really you really have to think about is what is OSU trying to accomplish against a team like Youngstown State? Now, as a fan, it's to us, we're like, beat them by as much as possible, right? And, there's nothing wrong with thinking like that as a fan. But as a coaching staff, when you're developing a young team, especially a young quarterback, your goal isn't necessarily to win by as many points as possible. I would argue that Ryan Day has had a very conservative approach to these games for many reasons. And a huge part of those reasons is he didn't even announce the starting quarterback yet. And Kyle McCord had only played Akron. I don't know how much that counts as a start. It's something. So he did come in with more experience, but he'd never really been the guy. So I think Ryan Day took a conservative approach to these first two games to give him confidence. You know, the few throws that he did throw were easy throws, although the Marvin Harrison throws were quite amazing, actually. They took a lot of arm strength. They were NFL quality throws. I would argue that the second touchdown that I showed in my little highlight clip there, he did throw a little later than he should have because Marvin Harrison had to stop to catch it, but he did complete it. However, when you face a better defense, you want to try and throw in stride. So yes, McCord has some things to work on, but I see some bright spots with his arm strength. He was a 5-star recruit coming into Ohio State, and if you look at his old high school highlights, he flashed quite a bit. So there's a lot of potential, and we're not there yet. I think most fans would hope that we're not there yet. Like, if this is McCord's ceiling, that's a problem. But I don't believe it's his ceiling, and Ryan Day has a track record of developing quarterbacks. So let's not, sound the alarm bells right yet. And, each of his starting games, that's sharing some time with Devin Brown, he did throw for over 200 yards. Yeah, so, I mean, that's a good stat, and you want to throw for at least that when you're playing lesser opponents. Although I would argue that Indiana, with the transfer portal, their defense is actually pretty good. And I guess we'll find out when they play Louisville, who has a pretty good offense. But that's neither here nor there. So Ohio State did some things on defense that a lot of people are questioning. Something that you keep hearing is, why isn't JT and Jack Sawyer getting pressures? First off, there's a very limited pool of passes that have happened so far. When looking at Youngstown State, they did throw more than Indiana, but they still didn't throw a lot because as far as passing goes, they did throw 26 passes, but on many of those passing plays, Youngstown State, when they drop back to pass, you'll see that JT and Jack Sawyer dropped backwards into coverage, and then we brought our linebackers up in their place, and we were doing this to give some teams some things to worry about in the future. Now, will we continue doing that? We probably will still do that, but Western Kentucky is a passing team. They don't run very much, so I do believe we'll get to see them actually do a straight up run from the line towards the quarterback. There were pressures. They may not go in the stat book, but on many occasions, either Jack Sawyer or JT did cause the quarterback to move out of the pocket because they weren't necessarily in their face. The quarterback pressure stat does not go, does not tick towards either of those players, but they did have an effect on the quarterback on the few plays that they were able to do that. So what can we do to get more pressure with those four? Well, most teams so far are getting rid of the ball, between 2 and 3 seconds. It's hard to get to a quarterback on in that amount of time. And if you're Youngstown State, of course you're going to do that. I mean, they can't really block our defensive line, so they had to get rid of the ball quickly. So a lot of those quick plays were either incompletions, one interception, or a short pass, and we immediately tackled. So we have to take what we can out of that. We don't know. Western Kentucky will tell us a little bit more, but something that is very important, especially if you remember last year's Michigan game and Georgia game, was that we immediately tackled the receptions of Youngstown State. And that's a good sight to see. So I'm cautiously optimistic about that. Of course, when we play Notre Dame, that must continue because Notre Dame looks really good. But anyways, Western Kentucky, they throw the ball. Something to consider is that their quarterback had over 4,000 yards passing last year, which made him number one in the country. He does have a wide receiver returning from last year. They are going to pass the ball up and down the field with short passes. They are going to challenge our defensive backs more than anybody has so far. So yes, this is legitimately a team that we have to put our best performance against. They're not coming here to just, get moral victories. Western Kentucky is coming to Columbus to try to win. And that's different than Youngstown State and Indiana. And those teams wanted moral victories. They knew they couldn't beat us. Western Kentucky believes that they can beat us. So we can't be looking ahead to Notre Dame. It could spell disaster. Could the game be closer? I think we're a 28.5 favorite. 28.5 point favorite. I think that's, we haven't really shown that we can cover so far, which means, that's probably just because we've been splitting time between quarterbacks. We haven't been able to get into rhythm. So hopefully with Kyle McCord being the guy, we'll see some rhythm this week. But Western Kentucky is going to look to throw a lot of shorter passes and then throw some deep balls on us, and they're going to challenge our defensive backs. This will be the first time they've truly been challenged. So far, Igbinosun and Burke have both been blanketing the receivers pretty well. Mind you, they're not the best receivers, but still. If they're in position, it doesn't matter what receiver you play, you have a chance at stopping the pass from being completed. So pass breakups are a stat that I'm going to watch closely this week. Obviously, defensive line, I do want to see our four getting pressure. Even if it's defensive tackles, we want to see some pressure this week. That's something that we're all going to be watching for. Of course, our blitz packages, we used a little bit more than we'd have liked last week. I don't know if maybe the team isn't quite playing with the juice that you'd see against Notre Dame or not. A lot of fans believe that. There's a good chance that that's true because face it, when you're saying, oh, we're going up against Youngstown State this week, do you feel that the nerves in the pit of your stomach before a game like facing Notre Dame? I don't know about you. I love watching my Buckeyes, but that feeling in the pit of your stomach before a big game is different. Well, I had that feeling before Georgia. I had that feeling before Michigan last year. You get that feeling because it's a big game and you want to see your team win. You don't get that feeling when you're playing these smaller schools. I don't even get that feeling for Indiana. I was excited to see the Buckeyes line up for the first time, but I imagine that the players are much the same. We know that we can out-athlete teams like Indiana and Youngstown State. We should be able to out-athlete Western Kentucky, but I do think that their offense scares Ohio State a little bit more than Indiana and Youngstown State. So I hope that we see a little bit of that extra juice. I would like to see that, and I know everyone else would like to see that. Some other things that we need to work on this week is third down and fourth down efficiency. One thing that I've noticed with Ryan Day coach teams that's really strange, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but 3rd and 9 is more manageable than 3rd and 2. Someone explain this to me. We convert 3rd and 9s on a much more consistent level than 3rd and 2. What is that? I don't understand. That is so strange. And we have good running backs. I would argue that on 3rd and 2s, we need to run downhill a little bit more. I know that they crowd the line, but so far when we've run downhill, our blocking's been pretty good. Of course, if they stack everything, that's why we would run side to side. So how do we improve on going to the sidelines? A toss play. Well, I need to see, and I think all fans would agree, better blocking from our wide receivers. I don't know what's going on, wide receivers. You blocked against Georgia, and you looked good. And I'm talking about the same wide receivers that were out there against Georgia. They blocked against Georgia. We made some good plays. Okay, if we can do that against Georgia, we can handle outside blocking against Western Kentucky. So we need to work on that. Where's our outside blocking? I do want to put an asterisk. Okay, again, I was hard on Corey Fleming. Fleming, you did an excellent job blocking last week. You did better than any of our wide receivers, including Marvin Harrison, as far as blocking goes. Good job. Our buddy Cade Stover leaves a lot to be desired on blocking, and that includes other types of run plays. Stover, buddy, you are a big dude. You are bigger than the dudes in front of you. Block. Our running backs are good, but if we don't block, they don't look good. So, focus. We need to see that. Our team can block, and there's been many occasions where even Simmons has looked monstrous in the blocking. Okay, and if you go back and look at the penalty that was called, we scored a touchdown and they called holding and took it back. It was a running play for like 30 yards. You'll see that Simmons put the hands to the face and knocked the helmet off. Okay, now the very next time is the same drive. The very next time we had the same kind of play. I believe one was Henderson and I believe the other was Trainum. I may be wrong. I'm sorry. I forget some things. But it was the same play and Simmons blocked really well. He moved his man to the side, opening a hole. That means that these linemen have the potential. They miss blocks sometimes, and they've been undisciplined at times. That is a problem, but it's an exaggerated problem. Why do I say it's exaggerated? It's because they can do the blocking. They are monsters and beasts up front. They're just missing blocks, and that is something that can be corrected. And we have to correct it by Notre Dame, otherwise we're going to look silly. So, Notre Dame has a very good defense. So that must be worked on this week. We need to see less holding penalties. Why do we hold? Probably because we didn't hit the block at the right time. And, we have to be on the same page. Now, several, beat writers and other people that are close to the program have mentioned that during the training camp, our frontline blockers were split up into 4 units. We basically had 4 separate teams on the field in training camp practicing. I'm not a guy that played football, but I would assume that the continuity of our offensive line was affected by that strategy. I'm not sure that that's ever been done before at Ohio State. So I don't know what was behind that. I will say, though, even with that, our pass blocking overall has been pretty good. Our only problem that I see in our pass blocking is sometimes we still don't identify a blitzing linebacker, and so they bring more guys than we have up front. We had that same problem last year, though, and we eventually worked that out. So those are some things that I would like to see. Mainly, consistency at running game. Our guys are good. They are big dudes and they can block well. It's just a matter of doing it. It's just a matter of knowing your assignments. So, another thing that I always want to look for, especially in a game like this, is the very first drive that's scripted. So far, all of our games, both of our games, the scripted drive, the very first drive, has ended with a touchdown. Those plays are the plays that our team has down. Our playbook extends and grows each week. Okay, so can we have more than just that scripted drive where we look good? That'll show that we've grown over the past 3 weeks, which I would argue we have. Okay, and my last thing I want to bring up is, I'm going to say a few more things before closing, but Kyle McCord has not done a bad job. He's definitely made some mistakes. He's made some NFL level throws and very accurate throws. He has underthrown some balls, and I was very concerned because he tried to throw to Corey Fleming, who was double teamed. By the way, Youngstown State, why would you double team Corey Fleming? That's neither here nor there, though. I don't get that strategy, but it worked because Kyle McCord threw to him for some reason. So I don't know. But I was very shocked to see Corey Fleming double teamed. But when you have Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr., if you double team Corey Fleming, you're going to pay for it. I guarantee it. But anyways, sometimes he's underthrown. Sometimes he has thrown too quickly. Throwing to a double-teamed guy is not a good idea. Better teams will make you pay for that. So Kyle McCord just needs to settle down. He needs to go through his reads. And I believe we'll see some growth on that this week. Some things I want to mention. I know that our defensive ends have faced a lot of criticism, but I do want to mention Hero Kanu and Caden Curry have had a great season. I did get one stat wrong with week 1. I believe I said Caden Curry got the first sack, but it was actually Hero Kanu. Caden Curry tackled the quarterback run that didn't count as a sack, so I did get that mixed up. But both of them have been putting tremendous pressure when they've been in. So hopefully that puts a fire under Jack Sawyer and JT this week. So let's look for these things. Hopefully these things happen. Hopefully I'm not going into the same exact issues talking about Notre Dame next week, our first big test. Another thing that I want to see, Jack Sawyer looks like he's kind of late getting up out of his stance. Again, like I'm hoping that that's just a problem of not having the same juice as when you play a team like Notre Dame. But at the same time, I'm also hoping that doesn't continue because believe it or not, when you play a team that doesn't generate that juice, you have to create that juice. And, as a player, you only get 12 games. Not having that juice can lead to an upset from a team we have no business losing to. Western Kentucky is definitely one of those teams we have no business losing to. And a lot of people are saying, hey, Western Kentucky has that type of offense. Buckeyes, we can't allow that to happen. We're better than that. And our athletes are some of the best in the country. So let's play like it tomorrow, okay? And Buckeyes that are going to the game, let's get that juice flowing. I know it's not Notre Dame, but look, we don't have Notre Dame coming to the Horseshoe. We need to cheer on our players and get that enthusiasm in the Horseshoe tomorrow. We need to let our players feel that electricity so that they can bring that into next week's game. All right, Buckeyes, well, hopefully after tomorrow, I'll be making a video talking about how we're 3-0 and preparing to go 4-0. And let's go Buckeyes, all right? And don't forget to sing the Carmen, Ohio song at the end of the game tomorrow. Carmen, Ohio, our alma mater song. Everybody loves it. The atmosphere, the feeling of seeing that kickoff happen and our Buckeyes taking the field. If you don't get goosebumps just thinking about it, I guess you're not a Buckeye fan. Thanks. Have a great day. Go Buckeyes!